Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
So you are on a team with your wife, Lauren, out of Akers Ellis, and you guys specialize on Kiawah Island. Do I have that all correct?
You got it.
So most agents would never work closely with their spouse, and I can attest to this in a different industry. I worked with my wife, and now we work in completely different industries, not even in the same building. But why does
Yeah.
it work so well with the two of you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we just have different ways that we work. I'm one of those guys where if I'm trying to work from home, then I'm seeing things that I need to clean or dishes I need to put away or let the dog out or grab a snack. So my thing is once I'm done with my workout in the morning, I'm going to the office. I've got a I've got a setup at the office where it's a big screen. I can pull up a spreadsheet and MLS and kind of do my thing and run the numbers. Um, Lauren is able to work from home and knock some things out. But also she's got her lane and I've got mine. So she's an attorney by trade, and so I have her handle all the contracts. She's reviewing them when they come in, when we're on the selling side, and when we're on the buying side, she's the one that's drafting them all up. So so that's the main focus that she's doing. I'm more of the numbers guy with my commercial real estate background, so it's coming up with the numbers that we need to list a property for, but then also kind of diving deep into we're going to present an offer on X property and where is a reasonable place to start, where do we feel like we need to end on this. So we really don't pass each other until the evening comes around unless we happen to be on a joint meeting, either showing clients around and we both happen to be available, or most listing appointments will partner up and be at those together. But for the most part, we will see each other in the morning and then in the evening, and have a lot of phone calls and texts in between.
Did that happen organically that you gravitated towards the spreadsheets and, the real like nitty-gritty part of the business and she was more the attorney side? Did that happen naturally, or when you guys set out at the outset, were you like, I want to do this, this is my part of the business and this is your side of the business, and it was really intentional?
Yeah, no, it was more organically, and it hasn't even been one of those things where we have the conversation. I'm like, no, 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 you're the contract person. Like, it's just kind of like assume that that's the case. She's been doing residential after she left the attorney life. She's been doing residential much longer than I have. So when it comes to reviewing repair addendums or drafting them, I mean, that's all her. She's able to go through line by line once we get the inspection report in, 13.1.2, and she's putting it in there in the way that it needs to read. And on the numbers side, like, commercial real estate is a lot of numbers and a lot of things that like have to make sense. Um, on the vacation rental side, if somebody happens to be looking at a property on Kiowa and is looking for some sort of return, I'm presenting the numbers. But at the end of the day, like, when you're investing in real estate, if something is really sexy, the return is not going to be great. So I'm able to just explain to those potential buyers, either cut them short and say, hey, look, if you think that you're going to generate a 10% return, the cap rate's going to be super high. This is a waste of time for all of us. I'm able to just say, hey, here's the P&L. Here's what that property is producing. The last few sales have been in the 1.4 to 1.5 range. Like, if that makes sense based on the expenses and return, then like, let's move forward. Let's go look at some properties. But if it doesn't, then let's move on. There's other opportunities, and it kind of saves everybody some time.
Let's actually back up to that a little bit. So you have a background in commercial real estate. When did you leave that and hop into the residential side?
Yeah, so jumped over in 2022. So I got into real estate, I think it was 2013, and and decided that commercial real estate was an easier focus. I'm not from Charleston, so when when it came to trying to find buyers, it's not so easy to just walk up to people and say, "Hey, are you buying or selling a house?" And I'm not that kind of person that wants to like lean on my friends to help support my business. So commercial real estate was easier for me because I was able to work at a firm. They gave me a couple shopping centers that I was working on leasing up, and I had success on leasing those up. And then it rolled into doing some commercial sales, and and then 10 years later, I'm still doing it and it's still going well. But at the same time, COVID hit, and, Lauren's super busy on selling real estate out of Kiawah. And then I'm still busy, but it's still like a weird, what's going on, what's going to happen in the real estate world. And, and at the same time, we were looking at purchasing an investment property with some family members, and, a property on Kiawah came available. They were lowering the price. Um, an architect buddy of ours quickly drew up some plans because this property was going to need a significant renovation. So we had bought that property in December of 21. And as we started in the early stages of 22, again, Lauren's still busy. I'm busy. We've got kids at home. We can't send our kids to school still. Um, it just, we felt like it made the most sense. Either she's joining me or I'm joining her. It's a lot nicer to be driving out to Kiowa and touring those houses than, traveling to Columbia and showing property. So I was kind of hybrid for that first year, doing commercial, helping Lauren on the residential, and then helping with the renovation because it was a 14-month renovation that we did on the 64 Surf Song house. So that's what kind of brought us over, and then it again, like, kind of organically was like, this residential is way easier with us working together than for me to be half foot in, half foot out. So that's when we whatever, been a team, but we put a name on it, the Selling Kiawah Team, and branded that way because we really wanted to just be super narrow on our focus. And since COVID had hit, the numbers had really gone crazy, and we had been doubling our business every single year. So a lot of people think that maybe that's too small of a niche, and you could have struggles down the road, but to up until today, we're still, our business is growing, and I think it was the right move.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are absolutely crushing it. I don't think anybody could argue with you that it wasn't the right move. You mentioned moving from commercial, and then you're having these conversations with clients and you're talking about capex and these kind of nitty-gritty things. I'm curious if there's anything else from your commercial background that you feel like I was able to take this skill from working in commercial and apply it to residential, and it's made me differentiate myself a little bit from some of the other realtors that might not have that background that are working on Kiawah. Is there anything else in there that you feel like you took away that really helps you today?
Like, just easy to have high level conversations with people. I'm able to have the deep conversations with the commercial buyers. A few of our clients, they reached out to me. I don't have a huge following on social media, but I did have a follower on social media when I was on the commercial side, and he saw that I switched over on the residential side. They happen to own a house on the river course in Kiowa, and ended up sending their brother-in-law to me to help them buy a property on Kiowa. It's not, plenty of people deal with 1031 exchanges, and those were also things that I was dealing with on the commercial side. So it's not like a foreign word to me and something that I need to like do a deep dive into fully understanding what that is. Um, Rarely do people talk about cap rates, but when they do talk about cap rates, I'm able to say, no, no, if you want to talk exactly cap rates, then I can send you an Excel spreadsheet that says that this is bringing in a 7.5% return or a 5% return, or if you put this much into the property, this is what you can generate. Um, so I think it's more of the buyers feel more comfortable knowing what my background is, and that I'm not, jumping on YouTube at night to try and study up before my next conversation.
Yeah, probably a good thing. I love that you mentioned the number of followers on social.
Yeah.
This is something that I've been leaning into a lot lately. I would say just in the past year, I was one of those people that before getting into the industry, I didn't do hardly anything on social media. And then you start working in real estate, and everybody's like, you got to be on social, you got to be on social, you got to be on social. And I think a lot of people are chasing how many followers can I get? How many followers can I get? What's a video that I can make that can go viral? And what I've been talking to with a lot of people that actually convert from social media, they're like, don't worry about any of that. You're really only trying to reach a very small set of people, but make sure you're communicating the right message to those people and make sure that, you're saying something that could convert into actual business. So have you had the same mindset? What have you kind of gone through in learning through social media there?
Yeah, I mean, my thought on social media, like I'd love to have, 100,000 followers, but I'd rather have 3,000 that are really dialed in, that are really interested in what I'm putting out there, and not a bunch of fluff. And you know, I follow all the people that are all about social media. I know how powerful it is. You know, I I know that I'm late to the game. Follow a lot of like Gary Vee stuff where it's like, trying being on social media and across all platforms, and I could absolutely do a better job of, I'll get into like the Instagram, and then it flows into the Facebook stuff. So that's easy. But then I'm like, well, I should still be putting stuff on TikTok. But then, YouTube is super powerful. Yeah, everybody says it every single day, but it's the second largest search engine on the web. What's interesting about that, in my opinion, on like, I need to do a better job on YouTube Shorts. So taking my Instagram post, keeping it under a minute, and throwing out some sort of nugget on real estate or Kiawah, and just consistency. So I will be consistent, and then I'll get busy, and then I'll be like, wow, I haven't posted anything on YouTube in a week or two. Um, so we have a social media person that works with us, and she actually is a friend of ours from Greenville. So she handles most of our like generic content. So we've got a new listing, we send her all the information. She puts together the copy. She puts together the pictures. She'll create the post. She'll create the short. And then my goal is to kind of um, fill in different stories throughout the day or the week on my Instagram. But my again, like you, my goal is to just put out a ton of content, and hopefully it's weeks and months and not years that I start to grow a good following, and people say they know, like, and trust Chris because they watched a lot of his videos, whatever sort of Instagram or YouTube or wherever they may have found me. They see me as somebody that's a trustworthy resource, that knows his information, and focuses on Kiowa. And that's, it's not to say that I can't sell anywhere else, like, but it's my backyard. We own there. We live on Johns Island. We're 20 minutes from the front gate. Another thing, you can't show property on Sundays unless you're an owner on the island. There are a lot of benefits to knowing what's going on. We're constantly getting the emails from the Kiawah Island community, so we're updated on everything, and it's not one of those things where we have to wait till there's some post in a newsletter or article to know what's going on the island. Um, so I think I absolutely do a better job of it, but my goal is to just be more consistent and just get more content out there and not worry about the followers and just get that out there. And then, you know, maybe something goes viral. I think I've got like 1,500 followers on Instagram, but there have been posts that we've had on particular properties where we've had 25 and 30,000 views. So I'd rather have that at 15,000 followers than to have 400 views with 30,000 followers.
Yeah. So well put. And I love that you mentioned Gary Vee. I've been listening to Gary Vee every day for like a year now, and
Yeah,
I don't know. Everything he says, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just so
yeah,
like world rocking. I absolutely devour his stuff. So
yeah.
so good. Um, the narrow focus on Kiawah. You guys have carved out such a great niche, and you already explained it. Like it's in your backyard. Um, how you kind of got there, but it always feels like when you want to go all in on one thing, like you guys have with Kiawah, sometimes you have to walk away from something else. Was there something that you feel like you had to push out of your business to be able to narrow that focus? And would you do that again? Do you feel like that's been beneficial for you?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we've lost some business from people thinking that we can only sell on Kiowa. So it's a pro and it's a con. You know, I've had commercial clients of mine that are like, "Hey, can you sell my Somerville house?" And I'm like, look, you've got a great house. I'll be involved with the deal, but I've got another agent in my office that's like really honed in on that area, does incredible videos, is great at marketing. Said, let me introduce you to them. I'll be part of the deal. If there's any sort of issues, like let me know. So I'll send referrals within my office on certain areas around Charleston that I don't know as well as I could. Um, and I've also had like close friends that, you know, they listed their house with somebody, some random person, and I'm like, hey man, like I'm happy to help. I want to be a resource. Like there's no harm, no foul. Like I understand. I chose my niche. My brand is selling Kiawah. So like we're still good friends, and there's no bad blood. But I want my friends to look at me as a resource, and whether if I'm not the best option for where they're selling in their particular area, I'm going to be totally straightforward. I probably lost more deals like during COVID because I never wanted to tell somebody, hey, you know, a property's worth X and it's going to be worth X forever. But at the time, like people were coming online and they were looking at properties and they were buying them sight unseen, and it was one of those things where, um, you know, I just never wanted to tell somebody, yes, that property is going to be worth $3 million and $4 million in 5 more years. And it's the same thing when I'm talking to friends and they're like, well, what do you think about me selling and buying this? Okay, well, you bought your house for 400,000, your interest rate is 3%. You're going to be buying at 800,000, your interest rate is going to be 7%. Like I'm losing deals, but I want to be a resource for my friends. If they still want to move forward, I'm there for them. But but I just want to be a resource for these people. And I know I missed out on deals, but I think I've also we've gotten deals because of it. So, you know, I don't know what the stat is. Everybody knows like 7 to 10 real estate agents, I would imagine at least. And if you don't have a niche, and then that person's only thinking about the last one they saw. And I think that there are times when friends of mine or people that barely even know me maybe see me at the gym. They're like, you know what, Chris has something to do with Kiowa. Like I had a relative that was like looking, maybe I should introduce them. So I think I've gotten deals out of that, and that has like outweighed it, kind of like the Chick-fil-A effect. Like, are they making more money by only being open 6 days a week? Um, or are they losing a bunch of money? Like, you know, I think at the end of the day that we come out ahead. And my main point to close friends or people is just like, use me as a resource. I'm never going to be the person that's going to stand in between a deal. Um, but whatever, use me in the background, whether you live locally or not. I want to be a resource for people because I think that, karma is going to come back and it's going to work out.
The Chick-fil-A effect. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm totally stealing that. That's
Yeah.
so well put. That alone. Um, and yeah, I mean, I do feel like it's so hard, especially, I'm a few years in and I'm trying, to grow my business. And I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that. And it's almost like we feel this pressure to have to like want to be able to do everything and have to know everything, and you've done such a good job and it's such an inspiration to hear like, no, I'm leaning into this niche. This is what I do best. And if I can't best serve my clients, I'm going to find somebody that can, and it's a lot easier to say than it is to do. But I think if we can remind ourselves that a lot, that's really powerful. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that part of that was the commercial real estate side. When I joined the company that I worked for, they were retail focused. So there's retail, there's office and industrial, there's land sales, and there are, the most successful agents had their lane. Like they were tenant rep people and they did retail stuff, or they did a lot of like industrial properties. You've got different types of leases, triple net leases or gross net leases or full service leases. So when I was in commercial real estate and I was doing retail, I was showing a tenant one shopping center, and then that wasn't a good fit for them, and I'm able to say, hey, you're not represented. There's this other shopping center that's not far away, that's 1,200 square feet, that's $32 a square foot triple net. I think that could be a really good option for you. So and it was one of those things where when I was working for that company, they wanted us to roll into trying to do some more office and industrial. But again, it was the niche of the company, and when a bulk of your properties were retail, then that just ends up being what spins you into the next thing. And for Kiawah, when we're having one sale after another, we send out postcards every single time we list a property to all of Kiawah, every single time we sell something to all of Kiawah. So that ends up being the business that we get back in, and a lot of it is off of these postcards that we send out, and they just say, wow, Chris and Lauren just represented some buyers on Augusta National, and that was like at a similar price point and something that we were looking for. So again, I can't go back now. Like we're so deep into the Kiawah stuff, but I just think our net is higher than it would be if we just said, hey, we'll represent you anywhere you're looking. Again, it's 20 minutes from our house. If I'm showing property in Somerville and Monk's Corner and deep North Mount Pleasant, that's an hour drive. That's 2 hours out of my day without the showing side of it. I just felt like we could be more efficient if we just really narrowed down on this. And I'm constantly looking at numbers. So it's never one of those things where, man, I've got a wide open day today. I could be looking at every single, where were the sales? What just got listed? What did Kiawah Real Estate list? What's going on? Is there any off market deals that we can kind of generate a deal out of?
Well, not a bad niche to lean into.
Yeah.
I love that the toothpaste is out of the tube for you, and that you're stuck working on Kiawah there.
Yeah.
You mentioned the postcard thing, and that's something that is just so simple. And I think a lot of the agents who are listening to this might not equate. They might think, okay, Kiawah, I have to do like super fancy, something or other, and it needs to be different than what I would be doing in Somerville. But that's something it's a postcard. So simple, and so effective. But I think I would be lost if I didn't ask. And I think a lot of people who might be listening to this might be wondering, is there something that changes when working with these high ticket homes and these high ticket clients? Is there something that you feel like you have to do differently when working on Kiawah as compared to like Somerville or even Mount Pleasant? Or are the bones still the same?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at everything this like we're super busy, but I'm never too busy to like really do a deep dive on everything. So whether it's a property that we're listing in our neighborhood or whether it's a property that we're listing on Kiawah, um, I kind of attack it the same way. Um, you know, AI and using Claude and Chat GPT has helped. And it's one of those things where, if I were to list a property in a tract home neighborhood, it's pretty easy to go on AI, not spend a lot of time, type in 2 or 3 sentences. It makes it sound pretty good. And that can be, a post for the neighborhood or help me kind of try and get listings in that particular neighborhood. Keel was a totally different animal. You've got, 1 bedroom villas that are 400, $500,000, and you've got $25 million houses. So, and everything in between. And age wise, stuff in the late 70s to stuff that was finished this year. So, what's helped me is when I've got all this information, I'm constantly looking at it. I'm constantly talking to builders that are doing specs, finding out what the price per square foot is, but doing a deep dive. So I think I attack it similar, but there's a lot more that goes into the stuff on the Kiowa side, and I really I've got all the information in my head and in the spreadsheets, and I'll use that information, plug it into AI. It helps organize, my proposal when I'm meeting with a client, and I can get a very good general range, prior to even walking through somebody's house. We're able to kind of starting to have that numbers conversation and see where things land. But back to like the postcard thing, social media is great and it's very inexpensive. The old school stuff, the postcards, it's expensive. I mean, there's 5,000 properties on Kiowa. So if we're sending a postcard out to every single property, it's a few $1,000s every single time. But from what we've seen in our business, that has generated enough return where it makes sense to still be doing that. And with our branding, people are seeing they're constantly seeing selling Kiawah team, selling Kiawah team. We've rebranded our our business and our website and everything that goes along with it. So people have just started picking up on it, and our business has really kind of taken off over the last few years.
One of the things that I've, we're 30 minutes in here, and one of the things that seems to be a through line through the whole thing is the details matter to you. It sounds like, you are super in depth with not just the properties that you're specifically working on, but the whole market. And I think that's something that we can all take away is, on my side, on the loan side too, it's like you can never know some of these files deep enough. When we're going through income counts and things like that, like the deeper that you can go early on, the better. Um, and it sounds like you've just done such a great job of understanding the complexities of your market better than anybody that I've talked to. So I think that's incredible. Is there one thing in the past few years? So when you started working on Kiawah, it was around, this post-COVID time, somewhere in there. Is there something that you feel like you've changed your mind on? Is there a belief that you had when you started working in this area that you hold a different belief now?
Um, I mean, you talk about the details, and I think a lot of times I can get overwhelmed, and I can have a 5 page write up, and that does me no good because at the end of the day, like the easiest thing for people to read, something in bold, you take a 5 page thing, you drop it into a 2 pager, then they're able to like lock in on it. And I think early on I was super into all the details and going over everything. And I think people just got lost at some point and they're like, well, somebody else told us 5 million, you told us 4.5, we're going to go with them. So what I've tried to do, and in the best case scenario, is for Lauren and I, when we're meeting with a seller, what I want to do, I'm going to come up with my 2-page kind of write up before the meeting and kind of give them a range of where I think they should land. But then I've got a spreadsheet of all the sales for the last 4 years, every single sale on Kiawah. And I've set it up so that I've got radio buttons where I can literally go to the individual neighborhoods. So there's probably 15 to 20 different neighborhoods on Kiawah. When sellers are meeting with any other buyers agents, they're taking the all the sales, all the sales. Okay, so you're in this range. Well, a sale on the front of the island or a sale that's oceanfront is not going to be a good comparable. So when I'm pulling an individual neighborhood, the best case scenario, I'm sitting down with the seller and I'm saying, okay, you're in the Egret Pintail neighborhood, you're in Middlewoods East neighborhood. So let's dial in. And if there's enough comparables, then we can use it. If there's not, then let's grab the neighborhood next door. But on Kiawah, the value of properties on the left-hand side of the parkway versus the right is significant. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. So when somebody is pulling numbers off of Eugenia for a house that's on the left-hand side of Governors, it doesn't do anybody any good to say it's worth $3 million when there's no way that somebody's going to pay over two.
Mm.
So what I like to do is come up with my 2-pager that kind of goes over the background of Lauren and I, a range of where something should sell for, and then sitting down with them and then going through my spreadsheet and just saying, all right, radio button here. All these houses, yes, they sold for the number you want, 3 million, but they all had memberships. And the value of memberships right now, it varies from year to year, but right now is probably $300,000 to $400,000. So if your house was valued at $3 million based on what these comparables are saying, and then I check the box where no membership, it's going to drop down to probably 2.5 million. And I want you to see that difference and not have you think that I'm pulling some number out of the air. Now we've still lost listings because we've been too honest on the pricing, but going back to the amount of money that we put in on the marketing side, on sending out the mailers, our dedicated social media person that handles everything, and then putting together, everybody has to have the drone videos, and if you're spending $5,000 to $10,000 for a listing that's extremely overpriced and it doesn't sell, and 6 months later they go with somebody else, they lower the price 500,000 and sell it, that doesn't do you any good. So it happens, I don't know, I'd say probably 20% of the time there's still the sellers that want to go with the agent that's going to tell them the highest number, and they don't care about what you explained. And you just kind of have to have peace to that. And we've had enough reps where I'm getting better at, not taking it personal, because, these people have an agenda and they're just like, Zillow was saying it is worth X, and I can't fathom that Chris told me that it's not. But in the last year, we met with a seller in Cassique, and we told them that the price point should be between 7 and 7.5 million. It's a very nice house, but it was very unique. They had built it for themselves, so you really needed to have the right buyer that was going to buy this. And maybe there were a lot of buyers out there that were going to appreciate it, but I just said, based on the numbers that I'm seeing, I said this is where I think we should be. So they went with another company. They listed it for 8.5 million. It sold 2 months ago for 6.9 million. So 6 million dollars off of the original ask. And I'm not going to be the person that's going to call up that person and say, I told you so. But I want to use that as an example for the next seller that just says, what good is it for me to tell you your property's worth $1 million more than it actually is? And my goal is, my sales pitch, my elevator pitch is, I don't need to sign a listing agreement longer than 6 months. We sell all our properties in less than 6 months. The competition is double what we are. So if we can get right on the numbers, then we're gonna be totally fine. Um, and I've got plenty of examples where, we've just priced it properly, or we've given the property a ton of exposure. We had met with a client, and he loved Lauren and I, but was like, you know what, this agent with the biggest company on Kiawah Island, they did me a solid when I originally bought it. I'm going to give them a shot. So I get a phone call from him 304 days later. And literally he's calling me, and before I pick up the phone, I go online and I see how long the property's been listed. And I pick up the phone. He goes, hey Chris, like, will you take me back? He said, I'm not having any action with this. And I said, absolutely. I'm glad you gave me a call. Our company handled the rental side for that house. So we already had the pictures. We just needed the paperwork. We had it listed the next day. We sold it the day we listed it. We got it under contract. It sold, I don't know, 98% of list price. We could have gotten more money, but the seller was like, I'm ready to roll. And it was just an exposure thing. There was a property that was just land. It was listed with our competitor for almost 2 years. We listed it for the same price, and we sold it for over asking. So I've got two or three different examples of that, and that's what I try. And it's like, how much can I fit into my little 2-pager to explain it? And then what's going to be, I really want to understand and try and listen from the seller, like what's important to them, because I feel like I can attack every single aspect of any challenge they may have, as long as we can get on the same page.
That's beautiful. I could listen to stories like that all day long. So we'll have to get you on for a part two at
Yeah.
some point. But I'm going to wrap us up there. Chris, you've got incredible advice. If anybody wants to reach out just to ask you some follow-up questions, dig in on anything you might have mentioned, or just connect further, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So, sellingkiawah.com, is our website. We just updated it. All of our contact information is on that. All of our contact information is across all the social media platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Reach out anytime. I've got an 864 number, and it's not because I'm not here for the rest of my life, but I use it as a way to block calls. I know if I'm getting a spam call, it's an 864 number and it's not an 843. So yeah, don't be scared if you're calling an 864 number. I'm here. I'm going to be here for a very, very long time. I hope that we can do another podcast. I knew going into this that like we needed like Joe Rogan time length to really like have a great conversation, but I'm glad we were able to squeeze it into 40 minutes.
Beautiful. I love it. I appreciate the 40 minutes that you put in, man. More to come
Yeah.
soon. All right.
All right. Yeah. Enjoyed
Thanks,
it.
Chris.
Thanks.